After a 3-week wait between episodes, South Park finally returned with its 5th of the season titled Conflict of Interest, and honestly, you could really feel the extra time they put into this one. For me, this was pretty easily the best of the season, seamlessly weaving together countless current events, a great kid-centric story, and the ongoing Satan x Trump lore. And I really mean seamlessly. They packed so much in, but it never felt overstuffed. They effectively defended Kimmel indirectly by skewering the FCC, called out blatant conflicts of interest we're seeing throughout a certain administration, and even gave Sheila a massive W by having her chew out Netanyahu. There's so much to go over, so let's dive in. And hey, if you like this breakdown, not only am I going to cover every episode of the new season, but I have a ton of South Park episodes, character, and lore breakdowns across the channel, so consider subscribing. Thanks. So, the idea that frames this entire episode is the rise in popularity in prediction market apps like Polymarket.
People can make any bet they want and then other users take them up on it.
Obviously, online gambling in general has become wildly popular over the past few years, and these peer-to-peer betting apps like this are a major evolution of that. I think this was a pretty fun way to center the story on the kids, something the season has sorely been lacking in. But it also is a great conduit to all of the other pieces of social and political commentary that the episode touches on. Honestly, a great way to open everything up without making the story elements feel disparate. And the big conflict that stems from this gives us a classic Kyle conflict via Sheila.
Will there be a snow day this month? Will Kyle's mom strike Gaza and destroy a Palestinian hospital?
Honestly, I was wondering if, when, and how South Park might talk about Gaza, and I know a lot of other fans have been as well. And though it wasn't really the focus of this episode, it closes out with some very satisfying Israel commentary. But we'll get there. The fact that this is even a possible bet on this app infuriates Kyle, and that drives his motivations, trying to get the bet taken down. When his fury starts making people actually take the bet more seriously, Cartman tries to manipulate his classmates even further so that he can make some money on the bet. One of the many reasons this one is titled Conflict of Interest. Speaking of conflicts of interest, the episode introduces Donald Trump Jr. as well, though not by name. But come on, look at that hairline, the terrifying smile. That's Lil Donnie for sure. Not to mention he's represented here as a strategic advisor for predictive markets, a role he actually holds at both Polymarket and Kalshi. Now, bear with me because this episode references a ton of important relationships and dynamics that are not explicitly stated, and so there's a pretty solid amount of real-world lore dumping I have to do to fully explain them. Now, the real-world event this is in reference to is the fact that Polymarket was the subject of federal regulations from the CFTC, prohibiting their services to US-based customers. Then, just days after Lil Don Jr. joined Polymarket as a strategic advisor, they were magically reauthorized for US-based customers, something that nobody would ever describe as wildly suspicious. So obviously, in making light of this near-transparent case of corruption, South Park portrays Don Jr. as the predictive markets strategic advisor, the CFTC's strategic advisor, and the FCC's strategic advisor, just hammering home that there are absolutely clear-cut conflicts of interest here. A guy with the most direct imaginable connection to the current administration that oversees this regulation, capitalizing personally on those regulative decisions. I think the reason they don't explicitly name this obvious Don Jr. caricature as Trump's son is because of the ongoing Satan x Trump baby plotline. Obviously, we had the major reveal in the last episode that Satan was pregnant with Trump's child. I think introducing Trump's actual child by name in a different role here would have probably just muddied up those aspects of the story. But I was really impressed with how they continued this storyline, weaving it into this episode's narrative in a very funny way. When Trump realizes how much his life is going to change when his Satan spawn is born, he basically starts planting Acme-like traps to try and kill Satan's unborn child. I loved the way these fully played out like classic Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoons, except instead of the traps harming Trump, they all hit the chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr. And this is the way that South Park more or less launched their defense of Jimmy Kimmel, all without even mentioning his name. Bear with me for another quick lore dump. It is absolutely no secret that Matt and Trey abhor censorship. They have dedicated massive time in their career to fighting it. The entire South Park movie and 4 of their banned episodes are directly about censorship, and this is another piece of commentary that hones in directly on, you guessed it, conflict of interest. Kimmel obviously made comments on Charlie Kirk's assassination, relatively mild jokes after outright condemning the act, might I add. But after they were made, FCC Chair Brendan Carr specifically said that affiliates should pull Kimmel because of the comments made. And shortly after this, two very large affiliate networks, Sinclair and Nexstar, did just that. Nexstar, by the way, coincidentally needs Trump's approval for a massive deal that would expand the amount of TV households reached by channels that they control. And they need this approval because this deal would violate the congressionally set cap that prevents monopolies. So, to recap, Kimmel mildly criticizes Trump and his base, Trump's FCC chair calls specifically for affiliates to pull Kimmel, Nexstar, which needs Trump's approval for a big deal, then pulls Kimmel. I think we should maybe all get used to the phrase, conflict of interest. Honestly, South Park was very ahead of the curve on this whole issue as well. Despite the fact that Carr attempted to claim that the affiliates did this of their own volition, Trump's post on Truth Social after Kimmel's return not only seems to imply that the White House was involved in him getting pulled, but also goes on to imply that Trump is going to sue ABC for giving him his job back, referencing the $16 million settlement he got from CBS and Paramount, making Jesus' speech from the season premiere all the more apt.
If someone has the power of the presidency and also has the power to sue and take bribes, then he can do anything to anyone.
Okay, sorry for that semi-detour. There's just so much context that ties to everything they managed with this episode. It all lends to the reasons this episode is entirely about conflicts of interest, while also showcasing Brendan Carr as a bumbling moron who falls into trap after trap, even shitting himself into the sky like a rocket. This gag is actually another example of the season of South Park harkening back to classic gags. Season 4's Cartman Joins Nambla had Kenny try various tricky methods to end his mother's pregnancy, just like Trump does here, including a near-identical morning after pill scheme, both leading to the wrong person consuming them. Back then, Kenny's dad, though this time, of course, Brendan Carr's full-on rocket reaction was a bit of an escalation. I did think the funniest attempt from Trump Hussein was the attempt to give Satan toxoplasmosis from a massive pile of cat shit, which of course is instead transferred to Carr, letting them really spell out what this is all about.
Will the head of the FCC be okay, Doctor?
If the toxoplasmosis parasite gets to his brain, I'm afraid he may lose his freedom of speech.
Yeah, I don't think that arm pose for Brendan Carr was a coincidence here either. But I also really loved the little setup here for how they're going to move forward with this whole ongoing subplot. The reveal that this little tattoo version of JD Vance is actually full-on evil, basically placating to Trump's fears and trying to get him to take out the Satan baby just so that JD can succeed Trump. Not far off from how JD is trying to position himself in real life. But I think he's actually proving to be one of the funniest characters of the season. I've enjoyed having the Saddam persona back for Trump, but obviously it's repeating an old gag for the sake of comparison. This new caricature for Vance has continued to surprise and evolve each new episode, and this little evil face here was so funny. With all that being said, the bulk of the South Park character work in this episode was Cartman and Kyle focused, and that was truly refreshing. After not really getting any episodes so far this season where the focus is truly on the boys, this felt like a pretty classic Kyle and Cartman conflict. Kyle being outraged by something he finds despicable and personally offensive, and Cartman trying to exploit that for personal financial gain. I mean, textbook, really. But Kyle shows justified outrage that people are treating this serious issue about Gaza and Israel so flippantly.
And Jews and Palestinians are not football teams that you bet on.
But I actually think the commentary they made here was incredibly apt and well made via Kyle, and especially via Sheila, which was really refreshing to see since Sheila hasn't gotten a ton of focus in recent years. But because she's the subject of this incredibly offensive bet, basically directly likening her to the heinous acts committed by Israel, they were able to use a classic Sheila outrage moment to get across this important distinction.
It's not Jews versus Palestine, it's Israel versus Palestine!
Now, I think the way this episode escalated from here was really suspenseful and subversive, thanks to the history and lore of the show. Obviously, the way this whole thing is framed, Cartman is worried that Sheila actually is going to bomb a Palestinian hospital since she goes to Israel, and that this would lose him the bet that he tried to manipulate, a bet he made with money he fully stole by clearing his mom's bank account, so there's a lot on the line for him. But historically in South Park, Sheila doesn't have the best track record when it comes to, war. I mean, she became Clinton's Secretary of War in South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and she fully motivated the war against Canada. So despite what she was saying in her angry rants here, I think a lot of South Park fans were likely thinking, wow, I really wonder if Sheila's gonna bomb a hospital here. Which makes the ending not just subversive, but really satisfying. Where now in Israel, she directs that classic ranty outrage she's known for directly at Benjamin Netanyahu, fully calling him out not just for the decimation of Gaza, but for the way he deflects criticism.
Killing thousands and flattening neighborhoods, then wrapping yourself in Judaism like it's some shield from criticism.
Honestly, this was so well phrased. There's no doubt that because of the atrocities committed by Israel, there has been a rise in anti-Semitism, that Jews everywhere are being blamed for what the government is doing. And this episode does a great job pointing out that this is pointedly not protecting Jewish people as Netanyahu insists it's meant to do. It's actually in many cases making their lives harder and worse.
You're making life for Jews miserable and life for American Jews impossible.
It was honestly pretty cool to see this framed so effectively here. On the whole, this was just such an incredibly well done episode of South Park. While I've enjoyed many aspects of the season so far, I do think that their insistence on continuing the Trump-Hussein x Satan plot has made some of it feel a bit disjointed. But this episode showed how well they can weave these stories together given the time. By making Trump's Looney Tunes-esque attempts to end the Satan spawn more or less the C plot, and also tying that directly to their humiliation of the FCC chair Brendan Carr, they were able to propel that serialized aspect of the season forward much more seamlessly. Plus, the amount of commentary they jammed into this thing was wildly impressive, taking the conflict of interest theme and tying it to literally every single subplot in the entire episode, all while interrogating the real-world conflicts of interest that we're dealing with right now, from the much-discussed Kimmel FCC situation to the astoundingly under-discussed strategic advisor situation for Lil Don Jr. Also, an impressively nuanced rebuke of Israel's actions in Gaza that's empathetic towards Jewish folks in America, and using the predictive market gambling trend as a perfect conduit between just about every single one of these subplots. Plus, it focused on the boys. I honestly don't think I have any complaints. This was the best episode of the season, kinda easily for me. A perfectly plotted narrative packed with seamless and scathing social and political commentary. Not to mention a classic South Park's credit gag with literally everybody being listed as a strategic advisor. Now, I expect that many folks are upset that this wasn't at all about Charlie Kirk, given their coverage of Kirk earlier in the season and, well, the obvious developments since then. I was surprised myself. I expected that the reason they didn't get this episode out in time last week was because they had shifted gears after he was killed, as they would have been a week into their 2-week production cycle at that point. But I think they probably made the right call not to shift gears, given how incendiary everything surrounding that has been, instead taking aim directly at the FCC's censorship in the wake of everything that has happened. Though I gotta say, that stadium memorial, that seems ripe for South Park parody. We'll see if they end up touching on any of it at all this season. The news cycle just moves so fast. I mean, what are the chances that we get Satan taking Tylenol during his pregnancy at some point? Hard to say, since the next episode doesn't release for 3 more weeks on October 15th, though every episode after that will allegedly have the 2-week production cycle re-implemented, according to their social media. We shall see. But what did you think of this episode? Were you expecting more after the 3-week wait? Expecting something different given the biggest events of the past couple weeks? Personally, this is the absolute highlight of the season so far for me. Has me both satisfied with the episode and excited to see where the serialized elements go next. Let me know how you feel below in the comments, and I'll see you, I guess, midway through October for more South Park coverage. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny two cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny two cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.